I couldn't believe my ears as Derek's hushed voice filtered through the slightly ajar bedroom door. "Yeah, I can't wait for our weekend getaway, babe. This little hideaway will be perfect for just the two of us." My heart pounded, breath catching in my throat. Derek was supposed to be on a business trip, not planning a romantic rendezvous. Anger and disbelief surged through me as the truth became sickeningly clear. My husband of 12 years was having an affair. I should have seen the signs earlier. The late nights at the office, the unexplained charges on our credit cards. But I was too busy juggling the kids' activities and maintaining our home to notice the growing distance between us. Now, the man I once trusted implicitly was blatantly betraying our vows. How could he do this to me, to our family? Memories flashed of our early years together, filled with passion, laughter, and dreams of forever. We were so in love back then, deliriously happy when our son arrived, followed by our daughter 2 years later. But over time, the spark fizzled as careers and parenting consumed our lives. I sacrificed my own ambitions to be a stay-at-home mom, while Derek's job demanded more of his time and focus. Still, I never imagined he would stray, that the love we once shared so fiercely could disintegrate into lies and deception. Hot tears streamed down my cheeks as the truth cut deep. My body trembled with a volatile mix of anguish and fury. Part of me wanted to burst through that door, confront Derek, and demand answers. But the other part felt utterly shattered, overwhelmed by the prospect of my life crumbling apart. As Derek's call ended with a sickly sweet, "I love you too, baby," I sank to the floor, racked with having sobs. My perfect family, the life I thought we had, it was all a mirage obscuring Derek's despicable betrayal. In that moment, I vowed that he would face the consequences. One way or another, he would pay for destroying everything we once held sacred. Our marriage vows were shattered, but I would make sure his deceit did not go unanswered. After that fateful night, I felt like I was living in a waking nightmare. Every time Derek came home, I had to resist the urge to scream the truth and watch his deceitful world crumble. Instead, I played along, pretending nothing was amiss while meticulously documenting his every suspicious move. I installed a tracker on his car and mirrored the data on his work computer and phone. Late nights at the office became obvious lies as I tracked him arriving at different hotels or an apartment complex across town. Charges for expensive dinners, gifts, and weekend getaways mocked me from our bank statements. The proof was undeniable, but I needed someone to confide in to help me process this gut-wrenching betrayal. Jen was the obvious choice, my oldest friend who had been by my side through thick and thin. "Jen, I don't know how to tell you this," I choked out during one of our weekly wine nights. Tears streamed down my face as I recounted overhearing Derek's call and the damning evidence I'd gathered. Her eyes widened in disbelief. "Oh my God, Eliza, are you sure? Derek's having an affair?" I nodded, unable to find words as the devastation washed over me again. Jen pulled me into a fierce embrace, letting me cry until the sobs subsided. "That low-life bastard," she seethed, anger flashing in her eyes. "After everything you've sacrificed for him and those kids? He's scum, Eliza. You need to take him for everything he's worth." "I know," I replied, my voice hardening with resolve. "I'm documenting every last expense, every shred of proof. He's going to pay for this, one way or another." Jen squeezed my hand supportively. "Good. The first thing we need is rock-solid evidence he can't deny. Have you thought about hiring a private investigator?" I shook my head. The idea hadn't occurred to me. "You think that's necessary?" "Absolutely," Jen stated adamantly. "We need photo and video evidence to nail his lying ass to the wall. No way he'll be able to talk his way out of it then." She was right. As much as it made my heart ache, I needed indisputable proof before I could confront Derek and his sordid mistress. Blowing up my life with accusations wouldn't be enough. I needed undeniable evidence to destroy them. Jen wasted no time hiring one of the top private investigators in the city. Within a week, the bombshell evidence landed in my hands, a thick file with photos and video stills that left no doubt about Derek's reprehensible betrayal. "This is everything we could dig up on your husband and his mistress," the PI stated flatly as I leafed through the damning dossier with shaking hands. There were grainy surveillance pictures of Derek embracing and kissing a younger, attractive blonde outside a hotel. Another showed them entering her apartment building, his arm possessively around her waist. Video stills captured their intimate exchanges, holding hands, tender caresses, the unmistakable body language of lovers. My stomach churned as I realized this was far more than a casual fling. The images spanned several months, documenting a torrid, ongoing affair. But it was the final evidence that made me reel. Derek's mistress identified as Amber Collins, a marketing manager at his firm. That snake has been parading his side piece right under my nose this whole time. I seethed, fury blazing hot in my veins. Jen placed a supportive hand on my shoulder. I'm so sorry, Eliza, but now you have concrete proof to nail both those cheating scumbags to the wall. I steadied my breath, reining in the tidal wave of emotions threatening to consume me. As much as I wanted to unleash my anguish and rage, I needed to stay focused and play this smart. You're right. It's time to stop playing the oblivious wife, I stated with grim determination. I'm going to confront Derek and that home-wrecking whore, make them face the consequences of their depraved actions. Jen arched an eyebrow. You're not just going to divorce the bastard? I shook my head vehemently. And let him just slink away with his mistress? Not a chance in hell. He betrayed me, betrayed our vows and our family. I'm going to utterly destroy them both before granting him that mercy. The look of shock and fear must have registered on the PI's face because Jen quickly assured him, Don't worry, she's not going to, literally destroy them. Right, Eliza? I allowed a cold smile to spread across my lips. Don't worry, I have something much worse planned for those two snakes. With the incriminating evidence in hand, it was time to stop playing the clueless wife and confront Derek and his mistress. I needed to see the looks on their deceitful faces when they realized I knew every sordid detail of their affair. I bided my time until Derek had an evening meeting, then extended an invitation to his coworker Amber under the pretense of interviewing her as a potential nanny for our kids. She arrived at our doorstep punctually, all bright smiles and rehearsed professionalism. Thanks so much for considering me, Mrs. Thompson, Amber gushed as I led her into the living room. I just love working with children. The sickly sweet tone made my skin crawl, but I forced a polite smile. Of course, please have a seat. Can I get you something to drink? Water would be great, thanks. As I headed to the kitchen, I sent Derek a text. Come home now, it's an emergency with the kids. He called back immediately, voice laced with concern. What's wrong? Are they okay? Just get here as soon as you can, I replied tersely before hanging up. I returned with 2 glasses of water, setting them down on the coffee table. Amber had made herself comfortable, looking around our home with an almost predatory gaze. Did she imagine living here, taking over my life? So, Amber, I began conversationally as I took a seat across from her. How long have you been sleeping with my husband? Her perfectly practiced smile froze as the blood drained from her face. What? I don't know what you're talking about. I laughed derisively, pulling out the file of photographic evidence and tossing it onto the table. Don't insult me with your lies. I have proof of your disgusting affair with Derek, you home-wrecking whore. Amber's mask slipped, eyes blazing with indignant defiance. You're just a pathetic, frigid housewife who couldn't satisfy her husband. He needed a real woman, too. The sharp slap of my hand across her cheek cut off her venomous words. In that moment, Derek burst through the front door, his expression contorted in shock and fear. Eliza, what's going on here? His gaze landed on the file, the welt reddening Amber's face. Oh, God. Don't play dumb, you sniveling bastard, I spat with acidic contempt. Your lies and deception end now. I want you both to look at me and try to justify this despicable affair. Amber touched her stinging cheek defiantly. We're in love, you miserable shrew, something you were never woman enough to give him. Before I could unleash my fury, Derek raised his hands in a placating gesture. Eliza, baby, please, let me explain. Explain what? I laughed bitterly, feeling unbound from the prison of our fraudulent marriage. How you've been parading your side-piece whore around behind my back for months, lying to my face every single day. Derek's eyes were wild with desperation, but I felt nothing but contempt for his feeble excuses. The vows we once cherished were shattered beyond repair. No more lies, I stated with chilling finality. You're both going to face the consequences for this. The reckoning has just begun. The looks of shock and fear on Derek and Amber's faces should have brought me satisfaction, but all I felt was a simmering rage. Their pitiful excuses and attempts to justify their depraved affair only stoked the flames of my fury. Please, Eliza, I never meant to hurt you, Derek pleaded, his eyes brimming with desperation. Things just happened with Amber, but you have to believe I still love you. I let out a derisive laugh. Love me? You threw away 12 years of marriage, destroyed everything we built together on a tawdry fling with this. I shot Amber a disdainful glare. This home-wrecking whore. Amber bristled, opening her mouth to spew more venom, but I silenced her with an icy stare. Don't even try defending your repulsive behavior. You knowingly slept with a married man, reveled in being the sordid mistress. You're both faithless, degenerate liars who will get exactly what you deserve. What's that supposed to mean? Derek's voice took on a nervous edge. I allowed a cold smile to spread across my lips. It means this fairy tale affair you two have been indulging in is over. No more sneaking around, no more lies. I paused, letting the weight of my next words sink in. I'm not granting you a divorce, Derek. Not yet, at least. You want to chase after your little office fling? Be my guest, but you'll be doing it with no money, no assets. Derek's eyes widened in panic. Eliza, you can't be serious. You're going to bankrupt me over this? Damn right I am, I stated with chilling conviction. I have proof of every last dollar you wasted jetting around with your mistress. The hotels, the dinners, the lavish gifts. All of it is going to be counted as marital waste in our divorce proceedings. Amber scoffed derisively. You're completely unhinged, lady. Derek is never going to let you screw him over like... Can it? Amber. I snapped with such ferocity that she shrank back. He's going to pay me every last cent in alimony and child support if he wants to keep seeing your skanky ass. I'll bleed him dry before ever granting that lying snake a divorce. Derek looked utterly crestfallen, the fight draining from his eyes as he absorbed just how much power I held over his future. But Eliza, my job, my family's company. You should have thought about that before stabbing me in the back, I stated coldly. From now on, you follow my rules to the letter. Any attempt to hide money or cut me out, and I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of degenerate cheater you really are. To emphasize my point, I scooped up the file of damning photos and waved it in front of them. This is just the beginning of my evidence against you two. Keep defying me, and your lives will become a total public nightmare. Derek slumped in defeat while Amber's face contorted with impotent rage. But I could see the fear flickering in her eyes as the gravity of her predicament set in. With a vindictive smile, I drove the final twist of the knife home. Don't worry, Amber. Once I've drained Derek for everything he's worth, you're next in line for total destruction. With Derek and Amber sufficiently cowed by my threats of financial ruin, it was time to unleash the next phase of my vengeful plan. I refused to be the only one suffering the consequences of their sordid affair. Their respective families deserved to know the ugly truth as well. A few days later, a thick manila envelope arrived at Derek's parents' home across town. I had meticulously compiled printouts of the most damning photos, video stills, and financial records into an anonymous dossier. I could only imagine the looks of horror and disgust on their devoutly religious faces as they pored over the indisputable evidence of their son's degenerate infidelity. The fallout was swift and brutal, just as I had hoped. Derek's father showed up unannounced at our home that weekend, his expression twisted with rage and moral indignation. You ungrateful lying son of a bitch, he bellowed. He bellowed the second Derek opened the door, shoving the incriminating file into his chest. How could you defile the sanctity of your marriage like this? Derek's cocky facade immediately crumbled as he feebly tried to defend himself. Dad, I made a mistake. But I still love Eliza. We can work through this. His father's lip curled with disgust. Work through your philandering ways, your despicable lack of morals and integrity? You've disgraced this family's good name. I watched the humiliating scene unfold from the living room, a satisfied smirk playing across my lips. Derek's pleas and attempts at rationalization fell on deaf ears as his father fully disowned him. Don't ever set foot on the family property again, he snarled, poking Derek in the chest with a rigid finger. And you can kiss your cushy job at the company goodbye, too. You're on your own from now on, just like the selfish degenerate you've revealed yourself to be. With that, Derek's father stormed out, leaving his disgraced son looking utterly broken and ashamed. Derek turned to me with pleading eyes, but I simply shrugged. I warned you there would be consequences. This is just the start. The next salvo came a few days later, when I anonymously sent the same packet of evidence to Amber's husband Blake. The firefighter didn't even bother confronting his lying wife when the truth was laid bare. He immediately filed for divorce and an emergency order granting him full custody of their 2 young sons. Amber must have received the court papers at work because she showed up at my doorstep that evening in an absolute frenzy. "You vindictive psycho bitch," she screeched, pounding on the door with her fists. "How dare you interfere in my marriage? I'll make you regret this." I merely opened the door a crack, holding up printed copies of the most explicit photos I had compiled. "Save your vile threats, Amber. These are just a fraction of what I have on you. Keep pushing me and your kids' friends, your parents. Everyone will see what a depraved whore their mother really is." Her face drained of color as the fight instantly left her body. Like Derek, she was coming to understand the overwhelming power I now wielded over her ruined life. "Don't worry, you pathetic homewrecker," I sneered. "I'm just getting started making you pay for your sins." With their lives crumbling around them, Derek and Amber had no choice but to submit to my vindictive demands. The legal proceedings were a total rout. The mountain of evidence clearly proved Derek's egregious marital misconduct and dissipation of assets. The judge took one look at the photos, videos, and financial records before sternly ruling in my favor. Derek was ordered to pay me over $75,000 in alimony per year, on top of monthly child support that totaled nearly 6 figures annually. His pleas for leniency fell on deaf ears. "You made your bed, Mr. Thompson," the judge stated coldly. "Now you can lie in it, along with the financial ramifications of your reprehensible infidelity." I couldn't suppress my satisfied smirk as the gavel came down, cementing Derek's hard-fought consequences. Amber sat in stunned silence nearby, no doubt realizing her turn in the crucible was yet to come. The hits kept coming for my husband's mistress over the following weeks. Her divorce proceedings were equally lopsided and brutal, thanks to the evidence I provided her soon-to-be ex-husband's lawyers. I'll never forget the look of abject horror on Amber's face when she arrived at the courthouse, fresh off a red-eye flight after being served with emergency custody papers. Her lawyer could only shake his head grimly as the ruling was read. Full physical custody was being granted to Blake, with Amber relegated to strictly supervised visitation due to her deficient parental judgment. "You'll be allowed just 4 hours per week with your sons," the judge decreed unsympathetically. "Mr. Collins has provided ample evidence that your adulterous affairs and toxic presence will only further traumatize those poor children." Amber's anguished wails echoed through the courtroom as the reality set in. Her children, the 2 little boys who used to light up her world, were being torn away from her due to her sickening infidelity. The final nails were driven into Amber's ruined life over the next 2 months. Her once promising career was flushed after I anonymously sent her explicit photos and videos to her former employer's HR department. Her severance package was revoked due to violation of the company's morality clause, and she was blacklisted from ever being rehired. The beautiful home and luxury car she had flaunted during her affair were swiftly repossessed by the bank to cover Blake's legal fees and outstanding debts. I even arranged for her utilities to be cut off, ensuring she would be left with nothing but her tarnished reputation. When it finally came time to grant Derek's long-awaited divorce, I made sure to drag Amber into the courtroom proceedings. She looked utterly broken, a far cry from the smug, remorseless mistress who had delighted in wrecking my family just months earlier. "Are you fully prepared to grant your husband's petition for divorce?" the judge asked me in a pro forma manner. I allowed a thin smile to crease my lips as I replied, "Yes, Your Honor. Now that Mr. Thompson and his former mistress have faced the full consequences for their deplorable actions, I am ready to declare our marriage officially over." Derek swallowed hard, unable to even meet my cold stare. Amber, on the other hand, openly wept at my final act of humiliation. She was well and truly destroyed, just as I had promised. Very well, then, the judge declared with a rap of the gavel. Divorce decree granted. This court is adjourned. As the final hammer fell, I couldn't help but revel in the scorched earth I had created around my husband and his mistress. Their lives were now equal wreckage, the ashes of their betrayal scattered by my own hand. For the first time in forever, I felt that rush of vindictive satisfaction that I had been craving ever since the day I discovered Derek's affair. My vows had been shattered, but I had ensured the ultimate price was paid. Karma, thy name is Eliza. The aftermath of my merciless revenge campaign was more cathartic than I could have imagined. With Derek and Amber's lives utterly decimated, I was finally able to begin piecing my own existence back together from the shattered remains of our marriage. The hefty divorce settlement and alimony payments afforded me long overdue financial independence. No longer was I shackled to the domestic inertia of being a housewife reliant on my husband's income. The world was now my oyster, ripe with possibilities. I wasted little time in pursuing my long-deferred dream of opening my own event planning business. The creativity and organizational skills I had honed over years of hosting gatherings and managing our household could finally be monetized into a viable career. Within 6 months, I had secured a small business loan, found the perfect retail space to sublease, and hired 2 part-time assistants to get my company off the ground. Pouring my pent-up energies into that professional endeavor was the ultimate salve for recovering from Derek's betrayal. The kids could hardly believe the newfound confidence and drive they saw in me. For so long, I had subjugated my own ambitions out of duty to them and our family. But with the millstone of my failed marriage finally removed, my sons beamed with pride watching their mother spread her wings. "I'm so proud of you for not letting Dad's cheating define you, Mom," my eldest remarked over one of our weekly family dinners. "You've built this amazing business from nothing." My daughter nodded emphatically. "The old you never would have had the guts to take this huge risk on yourself. We're lucky to have such a strong role model." Their heartfelt words brought tears to my eyes as I reached across the table to grasp their hands. My children had grown into insightful, compassionate young adults, despite the trials I had put them through with their father's affair and our bitter divorce. If anything, emerging from that crucible had only strengthened the sacred family bond we shared. There was no room for secrets or deception between us now, only unconditional love, trust, and support. While I was soaring to new heights, Derek's life had taken a humbling plunge into mediocrity. Gone were the days of cushy corporate leadership and upper-middle-class trappings. I certainly took petty delight in learning he had been forced to move in with friends after our divorce, his savings and assets completely drained by my legal fees and alimony demands. His prestigious career at his family's company had been flushed down the drain along with the last shreds of his reputation. These days, Derek was stuck, working a series of dead-end minimum-wage jobs, a nameless cog vainly trying to rebuild from the ashes of his shattered ego and hubris. I had well and truly knocked him down to earth, allowing karma's gravitational pull to punish him for his betrayal. If my ex-husband's descent was sobering, Amber's fall from grace was downright brutal. The former mistress had become a pariah in our community, her reputation irreparably sullied by the sordid details of our divorce proceedings. What few friends and family members who hadn't instantly cut ties were soon driven away by the woman's increasingly erratic and unstable behavior. Losing her children's custody had utterly shattered Amber's sanity and decorum, reducing her to a desperate, unhinged shadow of her formerly smug self. Last I heard, she was crashing on her sister's couch after being evicted from her apartment, struggling just to maintain the barest minimum-wage employment between bouts of heavy drinking and public meltdowns. Her kids reportedly wanted nothing to do with their disgraced birth mother anymore. While Derek and Amber wallowed in their well-earned punishments, I was thriving, bonding closer with my children, building a wildly successful new venture, and finally reclaiming the strength and independence that had been leached away over our stale marriage. Perhaps there would come a day when I could look back without anger or bitterness over their betrayal. But for now, I was content to bask in the rewards of my own uncompromising pursuit of justice and restitution. I had been wronged, but I had overcome, and that was the greatest satisfaction of all.